We are such stuff as dreams are made of, and our little life rounded with a slave, says Prospero in the conclusion of Shakespeare's last play, arguably the last play, The Tempest. This immediately brings before our mind the idea of our this life being an unreal life. Though here I am speaking of Tempest, the Tempest, this lines from the Tempest, this idea is very popular among Indians as well, because this has, this has striking similarities with the Indian philosophical ideas, especially of Advaita Vedanta and Buddhist idea of Maya, the existence being in fact non-existence. So there Prospero is talking about the same thing, that uh, it's a dream, that even now that I'm talking to you, that the things that we see everywhere around us, it's not real, it is unreal. So the real is unreal. Just as in the postmodern times or post-postmodern times, as Baudrillard had said, among others, that in this, or even Frederick Jameson has alleged that in this postmodern world, even the real is unreal. So it has been so in the ancient worldview also, which is echoed in Shakespeare's The Tempest. Of course, in the Western philosophical tradition, the origin of this thought is linked with Plato. And we are not very sure to what extent Plato was influenced or had connections with Indian philosophy, because Buddha was already there, but then and there have been cross-cultural transactions, but it may be that Plato arrived at it on his own. Yes, his most important progenitor there is Pythagoras. As all of you have done, Pythagoras' theorem in mathematics is that famous philosopher and mathematician all put into one. So Pythagoras believed that the world is based on numbers, numerology. That is another interesting philosophy, system of thought. Proper scientists may call it pseudoscience, but even mathematics is abstraction, right? So Plato's idea was that for everything that we see or that exists, there is an ideal existence of that thing in the ideal world or God's world. And the things that are manifest or become manifested in existence are copies of the original form in the real world. So there is slight difference from Vedantic or Buddhist philosophy. We as such do not think in Buddhist or Indian philosophy that all ideal things exist in the that everything's replica exists in the ideal world. Some later Indian philosophies like Vaishnavite philosophy sometimes argue like that, but then that's not the case. But our similarity is in asserting that what we see or perceive are not real. So it's very difficult to digest this, understand this. But anyway, so let us go back to Plato, from whom we start our studies of literature, right? Plato's Academy was the most important Western university, perhaps, or the first Western university from which lots of learning came place. Plato was an idealist. Idealist, not as we use it in our day-to-day conversation, referring to a committed person or a truthful person, though that meaning may not be absent from Plato's thing. But then by idealist, literally what is meant is that one who believes that everything exists in their real form in the ideal world, and whatever we see around us are copies only. So copies of copies. Circle, you see, prior to this circle that I draw here or you would draw here on your table, try drawing, there is an idea of circularity, right? Without that you could not have drawn that circle. According to Plato, that ideal circle is the real circle, which exists in ideal form in the maker's mind, from which we get the idea of the circle. So as soon as you put the circle in drawing or on computer, it becomes once removed from truth. Right? So this is the thing that it goes on for, or for example, say carpenter, the typical example that he gives, makes a bed or say a chair. But before the making of this bed or chair, he has the idea of bed or chair in his mind, right? Without that, he cannot make this. So as soon as he makes that bed or chair, it becomes once removed from truth, at one removed from truth. Now, if a painter or say an artist paints or draws a picture of that bed or chair, what happens is that it is twice removed from truth. So that way, in that removal of eternal removal once, twice, thrice, it will go on, he actually put literature also, Plato. So it's very surprising that a person with the highest kind of regard for philosophy, philosophical kings, etc., will find literature to be a direct enemy. But we have to understand his time. Things have to be just in its context. Today's time is different, where we have, you know, literature, philosophy, etc., on one side as humanities, and science, etc., on other side. But those days, this was beginning. Philosophy was more akin to science. Science proper had not started then, but then it was a mixed thing. And literature, since it is highly imaginative, was thought of leading further away from truth. So to get to the ideal world, the ideal step to go back to the ideal world will be a retreat. You meditate, you think, you philosophers go back from the real things and reach the ideal world. But what literature does is, according to Plato, it takes you farther away by talking about or giving you representation of representations. Plato specifically spoke about what would be equivalent to poetry today, not literature per se, but we can use it interchangeably because it applies to all imaginative literature as well. So yes, from our common sense also, we find that the kind of things that literature often portray is not in sync with the real thing. So even one of the finest theorists of later literary studies, Coleridge, said that literature is all about willing suspension of disbelief. You know that this is not true, but you don't question it. So you're trained like that. Just as when you go to a movie, most commercial movies, you know that most of the things that are shown there will not happen in real life. You know, that great hero, Singham, that kind of thing is very favorite with my, the way he kicks and blows his enemies, they go on, and Rajinikanth movies, those kinds of things do not happen in real life. So we see but enjoy because of willing suspension of disbelief. So it's a proven thing. Or when you write a story, you can write anything, right? Using your imagination. Of course, nothing offensive or offensive to collective, but then you can use your imagination quite liberally. But imagine you are called to bear witness on any case, given you are unfortunate, I mean, you have been unfortunate to be nearby when something criminal took place and you were asked to bear witness. Then can you say things imaginatively? No, you will be put behind the bars. So that means, here I am making an important statement, that literature or literary things again are not taken seriously even today in the registers of law, for example. So we cannot take all texts as texts equal. It is very difficult. Register specific differences are there. Anyway, so going back to Plato, so that is the basic thing you have to understand, that this world is unreal. Everything that we see is a copy of copy. or copy of the ideal thing in the maker's mind or in the ideal world. We can say that he was the first to divide the world like this, the cosmos. Say this is a dividing line, right? So on the top of this line, say there is God, and then below the world. So ideal things and all, we have to reach there through philosophy, maybe through religion, not through poetry and literature. It is like our concept of Maya in uh, Hinduism, Buddhism, primarily also other India religions of Indian origin, that whatever we see all around is Maya. Maya means ma means not, ya means which, that which does not exist. There is another interpretation, I don't like that. Miyate anena is Maya, that is by this illusion. No, the absolute has limited himself or itself. Brahman is a neuter term, a neuter gender in Sanskrit, so not male or female like Bhagavan or Bhagavati. So as Brahman is limited, that's why it is called Maya. And from our day to day experience also, we can argue that not all experiential things are real. This will go in Plato's favor. So, though Charvak said as a rationalist, pratyakshang eva pramanam, that direct experience is the better. Charvak will not experience, accept any other authority like that. The great grandfather of whom we can call the later empiricists. So in 18th century England, so Charvak in a way is their great grandfather. So Charvak said, I will not accept anything which is not seen before my eyes. But then what you see before your eyes may not be real. See the magic of PC Sarkar? People are cut into two in front of your eyes. You are really seeing that, but you know it is not real. Or that sun going around the earth. We see it with our eyes, but now with the eyes of science, we know that it is a hallucination. It is a kind of illusion. It is the earth which goes round the sun. Though some people still do not believe it, Orthodox people, but then so far as I am concerned, I think it is true. So that anyway, so my basic point was that though we may find objection to Plato's thing that everything that we see are unreal, because this is an age of experientiality in a way, though it will contradict my position on postmodernism, but postmodernism is still for the elite, I would say. But then in day-to-day life for the majority of the world, still it's we value scientific things or whatever, which accepts whatever is visible through science further as real. But then these two or three examples that I have given will also show that Plato also has some merit in his argument, if not all, that always what we see may not be what is. So with that, and this is a basic introduction to idealist philosophy, Plato's idealism. So remember this, and maybe you may come up with your own ideas of the universe or existence. Thank you.